Hey guys, it's Kusi. Welcome to episode 2 of our Blood DK journey to prove that tanks were the very simple and easy reason for my crash outs on the healer. And yes, episode 2, not 8. I kinda messed up on our last episode and titled it 7 for a while. English is not my first language. In this series, I'm not allowed to use any sort of help from guild, social contacts or previous successes due to Raid.io to show you exactly how I, someone who's not a tank main by all means, can easily get to the 3k achievement and therefore lay the foundation for greatness. At least that's what my mama says. And while my series are usually met with some funny business, which showcases highlights and dirt naps, this series will be slightly different. Because mainly, if there's an absolute legend on the tank, there are no dirt naps happening. Yeah, okay, a few dirt naps were happening. Funny enough though, all of my actual deaths that weren't meant for reset were falling from somewhere. Wish there was a spell that makes me immune to knockups or knockbacks.
Wait a minute!
I wish there's one spell. Alright, so without further ado, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you don't want to miss out on this journey, and hey, if you want to see me mauled, check out my series on the Holy Paladin. Shit was crazy. Oh yeah, of course it's Caverns, alright. Time to put my money where my mouth is. But before we get going, quick gear check. 256. More than enough to play 10s, which means only I can be my worst enemy. However, I do lack crit. A lot. Because crit also dramatically increases your parry. The 12% crit you see here give me roughly an extra 6% crit and chance, while having, let's say, 20% crit grants 13% parry. As you can see, it's quite huge. But keep in mind, I'm nowhere near a Abyss situation, because I just take what I can get. Which, by the way, on Blood DK, you can absolutely do that. Every stat matters because every stat has offensive and defensive perks, and there's only one big difference between the hero talents. Crit is, well, you know, critical hits for damage and extra parry. Haste means faster dot ticks, more button usage, and I'm sure also rune generation for a small extent. Mastery increases your attack power and gives you a shield after death striking, and Verse by itself increases damage done, healing done, as well as reducing damage taken. So whatever you have, go for it. I've seen Deathbringer DKs play with haste, and it works. When playing the Sand Lane hero talent, which is the other one that we don't play, you generally do more DPS, but for less defensive value, but you want a lot of haste. Because you got some tiny windows where you have to do big damage output, and you need to maximize that, so more haste means more buttons. With that being said, this is our build. I played around with Blood Mists and Consumption, but this seems to be the general more basic thing to do, one stuff potentially could hurt. Some people do play Consumption as a last resort defensive, but I'm not on that key level, so I don't bother pressing this absolute dog spell. However, you can do that if you plan to go higher keys to get used to it, you know? But hey, do you remember when they gave Frost Decay an empowered Breathos and Dragosa spell design, and people hated it? So they backpedaled to design its now, emphasis on people hated it, so they just gave a charged ability to Blood Decay. What a weird problem solving. The healing is fine, the damage reduction is solid, even though again, some players just use it as a last resort situation, but the damage is not good whatsoever. So unless you really struggle to live, don't bother with it. When it comes to weapon enchants, we have two choices as DK. Rune of Sanguination, which increases our death strike damage by a good amount depending on the target's HP, and Rune of the Fallen Crusader. Both are totally worth it, and you can play whatever you want to a certain level. Rune of Sanguination does more damage than Fallen Crusader due to Deadly Reach hitting 2 more targets with Death Strike. But the more targets there are, the more close they actually get and damage done. Fallen Crusader does provide a lot more healing though. But in general, Sanguination does provide more prior damage, and with that more damage on bosses as well. I change them quite regularly, it's nothing that matters too much from what I can tell. Also, Rune of the Crusader procs a lot, and 14% strength is nothing to sneeze at. Alright, so when we talk about the actual key, Maisara Caverns, we got 2 decisions as a tank beforehand. 2 questions we need to answer. First, do we hate our healer? And if so, how much? And secondly, do we go left or right? The majority of keys I've done, we move to the right side. But as a German, I have a historic responsibility to not promote that behavior. And so we go left. This is the route I'm aiming for. Actually, my key criteria was to skip as much in the back of the dungeon as I can, because these mobs are just disgusting. They are annoying to play, they do so much damage, nobody kicks them. Just don't pull more than you need to. The beginning of the dungeon also has more mobs that hurt the tank more than the party. And I can live with that a lot better than watching my healer struggle to random cast no one wants to kick in the end. Generally speaking, you want to open every +10 and above with a Bloodlust, so you get it off the rails and have the cooldown ticking. The faster you use it, the more often you can use it.
Quick maths!
This means you want to make the first pull count. However, don't be stupid. Just don't be stupid. The Berserker's Enrage, the caster puts heal absorbs out not even Obamacare could be able to deal with, and the bears do bear things. This pull in general is fine if you use your cooldown, and it obviously gets nuked down pretty quick in most cases. With us not going right, it means we also don't attract the Mammoth, at least not for now. Meaning there's a bit less party damage and a little bit less damage on you on the first pull. Once Lust is out of the way, you can pull however you like it. In 10s or above, I highly recommend to not pull like a wussy, but pull just a fireball. There's a fine line between going apeshit and falling asleep. It also slightly depends on how long the previous pull was going. Do you have Dancing Rune Weapon back yet? Or maybe even Icebound up? Just in case. Let's do it. Generally speaking, if your Rune Weapon is up, most DPS have their cooldowns back up as well. Because a lot of the classes have a 90-second cooldown window, and even those who have 1 minute usually don't waste it at the end of the last pull. While pulling, for us, it's all about how we make use of what we have. Our grips. As I mentioned in the last episode, it's the only one of its kind in this game. So when the Fab Hunter jumps back, you pull them back in. If the Eagle jumps out, you pull them back in. You can also use AMS for a lot of things here. Preemptively to maybe block the fire debuff from the masks, or to even negate the big shout from that big thing that has the same nickname as your mother, the hairy elephant.
Damn!
Blizzard rolled the dice on that one and decided that the eardrum exploding screech of an animal is clearly nature damage, and I agree. On the first boss, I generally only have 2 tips, one for tank and one for DK specifically. For tanking in general, use a defensive after Bird Boy leaps away. When he tosses the spear, that bleed hurts, and it's pretty much the only thing that would be a problem for you here. As a DK, use Death's Advance to not be knocked back, so you don't spread the 2 bosses for longer than necessary. Oh, and I guess that's not a tip, but more a normal way of playing. Try to move the boss around in the room in a circle, so you always have room to play in. Some packs are pretty annoying together, but as a DK, no problem. Double yoink, easy stacks, slap him down, boys. The mini-boss Roxal has 2 different approaches from my experience. A, you tank him close to the altar, which makes it easier to free the targeted player, always with a few extra mobs on top so you don't need to play him solo as well, or slightly away from the altar. Which one you choose depends on your party. Do you have someone with freedom or multiple classes that could break the route he does to escape the imprisonment? I'd recommend playing it slightly away. Makes it also easier to just gather mobs around him. Another little tip I figured out there is that the big defender mobs, the one with the big blockage spell, always aim towards you. So make sure you're not facing your party, which is kinda a basic rule regardless. Never face the party unless you hate them.
And that's a fact.
Afterward, Rasa, don't forget to grab these 2 beds, and we're almost done with it. On the final boss, we can cheese a lot on DK. You get 3 big tank busters for every phase, 1 on pull, and then 1 each during the totem spawns. For mitigation, use AMS for the first and the third, and Vampiric Blood for the second. Easy peasy, no healer needed. Also, here's a huge one for you as a DK, because we want to play around the uptime of our DPS. The tank buster is technically 3 fistings?
Huh?
Slams, that's the word I'm looking for. It slams. The first 2 are whatever, but the final one will put a puddle under you. Keyword, under you. Doesn't matter where the boss is, doesn't matter where you are, always under you. So instead of kiting the boss out when the totem spawn, what you should do is simply start moving out once he starts the channel is pounding.
Naughty, naughty, you teasing me.
It slams. And while that, we can use Death's Advance to simply ignore the attached knockback to instantly walk back in. Warriors and TH can jump. Monk could use Transcendence or Roll, and the other 2 are kinda screwed. Good luck. But this way, the boss is always in between the totems and makes things a lot easier for every melee involved. Just don't put the puddle in the same area of the totems and you're generally in a good spot. And there we go. First attempt on the 10, Caverns of all runs. Not even Purgatory procced. Totally not because I'm overkilled for it. The second run I did was Magisters. I would say probably the easiest dungeon as a tank so far from my experience. A lot of party damage, but that's none of our concern, is it? We also have another decision to make, and that one depends on if we have a Warlock or not. The good thing is, the change is quite minor. If we don't have a lock, I simply play those little sides of worms to fill up percentage, and with that we can skip the patrol before the third boss. And if you do have a warlock, you obviously have to make up for the final 2 big mobs that we don't want to play. So we will pull that patrol we would skip otherwise, and this pack at the first Void Caller. So we don't need both sides of the worms for that, which means we only take one for the buff. Now this sounds a bit confusing, but take a deep breath, look at what I mean, and we're good to go. Now me being a smartass here, I didn't play the warlock route even though we had one, because frankly, I didn't pay attention. But don't be like me, be a good tank. Disregarding if you have a warlock, don't sweat it. Even if you only pull what's in the way, there's a final pack you can kill at the end for missing score. You don't even need to do the skip, don't worry about it. But eventually, I want to do it right, so we have to learn early if we have the opportunity. Now for trash pulls in here in general, I have a few things I try to avoid. First, I'd like to avoid pulling all 3 pyromancers. You kinda have to play 2 of them, one will block the way at the beginning and one is in the first boss room, which you have to take care of because you need space for the boss. But playing all 3 is kinda unnecessary. They just hurt so much for no reason. During the first boss fight, you can kinda cheese the ball collecting mechanic a little bit by ensuring the boss stays close to this side of the wall. Apparently it prevents some balls from either spawning or reaching him because they maybe spawn behind the wall, and it makes life a lot easier. Make sure to use AMS to collect as many balls as you can, the ones that go through, because you don't need it for anything else on the boss. On Repulsive Slam, which is the slam that doesn't put the puddle under you, I advise you to use Death's Advance, so you can stand still, which means your DPS have more uptime. And for Arcane Explosion, which is the one that does put a puddle on you, and the one which also is a knockback, make sure your back is turned towards the direction you want to move. Using Death's Advance here doesn't make sense, because with that you just delay your DPS having uptime while you have to walk out of it in a not so slutty walk of shame. And you're just gonna take damage for no reason. Use the knockback to your advantage here. Oh, and if you don't know why we pull the worms into the boss, it's because they give a stacking damage increase, 1% per stack. Easy juice to start the fight. In the upcoming trash, you never want to combine the last 3 packs before the second boss. You can combine the first 2, but for pugging, play the last pack solo. I know it takes some time off the clock, but pulling 3 of these glaive tossers is beyond risky if there's no communication between rotating defensive cooldowns. We will live that, because we don't get targeted, but the other ones, not so much. Now for us as a tank, there's only one mob that will absolutely annihilate us, especially on a DK. The Devouring Tyrant. And I swore myself I won't make 2 your mama jokes in the video, but that's what she got called in high school. Disregarding, that dude has some serious slap attached to his muscle voidy arms. One that puts a nasty heat absorb onto us, which is kinda sus considering half of our defensive routine is healing, and it takes a long ass time to get through that. Fortunately, we can use AMS to block every second effect of these, making our life a bit easier and only partly scary, because the heal absorb can overlap with Void Infusion for even more heal absorb. The tentacle boss for us is such a breeze, man. You simply want to make sure you stack the main unit with one of his little nutsacks, so there's some multi-target action going on. Because all of them share HP after all, so if you hit more targets, it goes faster. And when the sucking happens, Death's Advance, baby. Easy peasy, no bother. Now, if you played the Warlock route and you're at full percentage here, you can easily use the gateway up the ramp. Just make sure to tell your Warlock, especially in lower keys, to put that sucker on max range. If it's too close, the Warlock pets won't teleport through, and if you have a Demolock, that's GG. They will walk around and pull. Same goes for Hunter pets, so tell them to dismiss them just in case. If you're a DPS player and you accidentally pull after the rest of the gang has advanced, just die and do not release. Don't be embarrassed, just get rest like a normal human being. You still save time. And the final boss is just an energy check for us. It's just gonna check if you can stay awake or not. The big tank buster called Hulking Fragment can be blocked by AMS too, which means you only get hit by every second of them. That also means that you don't need to be strategic with where to place it after getting dispelled, because they will despawn before the next one arrives if you use AMS between to block the second cast. Easiest boss you ever do on DK, hands down. You just stay at the same spot and sometimes you soak the little swirly. And there you have it. First 2 +10s in the bag on our way to a massive vault and some massive upgrades already, as we can finally use our free mid-gear coins. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you're still here, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.